Well, the issue of IPv4 exhaustion is obviously an important one, and we're going through the stages of v4 exhaustion at the moment at different times in different regions. APNIC Labs has been doing some detailed analysis also for many years now in an attempt to track and to project the consumption and the eventual exhaustion of v4 addresses in each region. And unfortunately, it's actually not possible to predict the future. All the labs work can do is to project forward based on what we see. Now, we've learnt from the pattern in regions that have exhausted so far that what tends to happen is that there tends to be an acceleration of consumption as the pool runs out, and we're seeing exactly that in the Arran region at the moment. It's likely that the Arran region will be running out of their supply in the next month or two. So I would expect before April or during April of 2015. What Arran will see is progressively over the coming months, they'll see the reality of the exhaustion of supply becoming apparent to their community, and they'll start to see more activity and more sort of demand and more activity, for instance, on the transfer market. The purpose of IPv4 transfers is to allow addresses which are not being used or they are being underused to come back into use. So someone who has addresses and is prepared to release those now has potentially an incentive to transfer them to someone else who needs them. Now, I should stress that the regional internet registries, certainly APNIC, takes no interest in the agreement that's made between the parties who are transferring addresses. What we are interested in is both the source and the destination are legitimate consenting organisations, agreeing to the transfer, that the address space being transferred has been properly registered and is genuinely registered to the source of the transfer, and then it is properly registered afterwards. So if those registrations are maintained and managed correctly, then we take no interest in the agreement, whether it's a financial agreement or otherwise, that's resulted in the transfer. And so the recent figures that have come from APNIC Labs are looking at the age of address space, that is when it was initially allocated, whether by the IANA in the early days or by the RARs, and looking at when that address space, particularly old address space, appears in the routing table. And it's true that we're seeing, for the first time in 20 years, we're seeing individual address blocks that were allocated many, many years ago. We're seeing them crop up in the internet routing table. And that shows without any doubt that addresses are coming into use as a result of the policies that have been applied these days, and that's a success. That's good. That's good to see. Point of address transfers, though, is it's not exactly to make IPv4 last longer or to defer the transition to IPv6. I think, in my mind, what it does is that it equalises the motivation that people have in different parts of the world to actually transfer, to transition to IPv6. And that's a good thing, because we know that the v6 transfer will only be successful once we as a whole community are moving at more or less the same time. And until we've all got a sort of a shared and more or less comparable motivation to do that, then we've really got some parts of the world moving at different rates to other parts, and that's not really good for maintaining a sort of global connectedness of v6 around the planet. We heard a lot of interesting real data this week about the state of the internet and where it's growing, and we do have literally billions of devices coming online now and in the near future, and there are billions of mobile devices, there are billions of smartphones. Total size of the IPv4 address pool, the absolute maximum theoretical size is only enough for 4 billion devices. In actual fact, there are many fewer addresses than that, because there are parts which are reserved and actually not available for use, and there's the issue of achieving 100% utilization of any block of addresses. So it's simply not enough. Even if we brought all address space into maximum usage, we would not be able to address the internet even as we know it today. So the transfer market is, again, not designed to make IPv4 last forever. It's simply designed to provide an option to those who need IPv4 now and who, for whatever reason, aren't ready to transition to IPv6. The good news, regardless of the transfer market, regardless of the state of IPv4 addresses, is that IPv6 is finally taking off. Growth is accelerating in a very healthy exponential curve, and we can see that not just in address allocations, because they've been going on for years and years, not just in the routing table, which represents what addresses potentially can be reached on the internet, but in the actual traffic that's flowing on the net. So Google has been a strong supporter of the V6 transition for years now, and they are tracking the amount of traffic that they are delivering over IPv6 versus IPv4, and they're showing a very healthy growth. So just recently they've topped 6% of all traffic that they deliver being delivered through IPv6, and 6% doesn't sound too much, but Google is delivering huge, vast amounts of traffic, and 6% represents a serious production, reliable usage of IPv6 on the internet. What it means is that any ISP that deploys IPv6 to their customers and that has IPv6 connectivity into the internet actually will be routing at least traffic from Google through IPv6. That takes load off the network, off the IPv4 infrastructure, including network address translators, carrier-grade NATs, which may be used particularly in the case of mobile phones these days. And that's expensive equipment that introduces performance penalties. So the more that an ISP can avoid having to use that transitional equipment and simply deliver IPv6 packets, the better off they'll be. I would say that today, for the first time in more than 10 years of talking about and being able to grow and deploy IPv6, for the first time today, there's an advantage for what you'd call early adopters of IPv6, that are an ISP or a content provider, or for that matter, an equipment manufacturer who supports IPv6 today actually can achieve a commercial advantage. It really is at the time for a planned move into production deployment. It's possible today.